The wind came down the mountain like a sigh from something ancient, low, mournful, and endless. Snow dusted the wooden rails of Stillwater Station, catching in the cracks and creaking boards. And there, under the station awning where lantern light flickered soft and orange against the dark, lay a woman curled on the bench like a forgotten note in winter's pocket. Silas Boone saw her before he meant to. He was just crossing the tracks, arms full of fence posts, coat buttoned high, breath blooming like smoke from a sorrow buried long. But the shape on the bench stopped him mid-step. She didn't stir. Just the swell of her belly, round and high beneath a threadbare coat, marked her as living. That, and her boots, cracked and stiff, pointed outward like she'd surrendered. The town hadn't mentioned her. Or maybe it had and Silas hadn't listened. Most days he moved like a boulder through Stillwater, silent and slow, too big for small talk and too broken for anything else. They called him the widower giant, though never to his face. Only his mule answered when he spoke, and even she'd taken to silence lately. He stood for a while, his shadow falling over her like a blanket the wind couldn't steal. He noticed her hands, pale and curled beneath her cheek. The snow collected on her lashes, delicate and uncaring. A whisper rose in his memory, his late wife's voice, the one that used to hum when storms rolled in. He tightened his grip on the fence post. He didn't speak. He didn't touch her. Just turned back the way he came, slow steps crunching through white. But something about her stayed lodged behind his ribs like a sliver of glass. That night, as he sat by the hearth, the empty rocker across from him creaked with each gust of wind, groaning softly like it remembered her too. Morning brought no mercy. The sun rose pale and sharp, and the station stood still as a painting. She was still there, unmoving except for the shallow rise and fall beneath her coat. He watched from the fence line, not hiding, not announcing himself. Waiting. In Stillwater, people liked their business neat and fenced. A pregnant stranger sleeping in snow didn't sit right with them, but not enough to change anything. Earl Briggs laughed loudest about it, leaning on the saloon doors with his pipe smoke curling into the frost. Dumb girl's probably lookin' for a husband who died before she could say I do. He spat to nobody in particular. Serves her right, settlin' where she don't belong. No one answered. That was the way of Stillwater. Watch, whisper, walk away. But not Mrs. Hargrove. She was older than the church pews and twice as wise. That evening she shuffled past the station, set a wool blanket down beside the bench and kept walking. No eye contact. No words. Just a kindness left like bread for birds. Silas watched it all from a distance. He told himself it wasn't his place. Told himself a lot of things. But that night, his dreams were full of snow and lullabies, and in the quiet between them the sound of someone crying, not loud but like they didn't want to be heard. By the fourth morning the cold had deepened into bone. Silas packed a satchel with what he had, dried apples, a biscuit, socks thick enough to last through March, and made his way to the station just after dawn. The stove inside the waiting room hadn't been lit in days. He bent low and built the fire with hands that had mended fences and buried love. The woman stirred at the sound of kindling cracking. You the station man? She asked, voice hoarse from disuse and cold. No, he said, not looking at her. Just someone who don't like seein' folks freeze. She said nothing. Neither did he. When he left, the satchel remained behind, resting gently beside her boots. He didn't wait to see if she'd take it. Didn't need thanks. That wasn't why he came. Back home, the fire he lit didn't warm him. It only reflected the weight in his chest. His late wife Claire had died on a night like this. Thick snow, thin hope, hands reaching for help that didn't come fast enough. The baby hadn't made it either. Since then, Silas had spoken mostly to ghosts. But now, there was this woman. Lena, someone had said her name was. Lena McCrae. 25, widow of a settler man who died of fever 6 weeks into their journey west. She kept moving. Kept hoping. Until her body gave up just outside a town that didn't want her. Each day after he returned. Not to talk, he wasn't much good at that, but to light the fire, leave a bit of food, sit on the bench across the room while she sipped the tea he brewed. She always drank it. Never said much. But one day she whispered, You got a name? Silas Boone, he replied after a pause. Folks just call me Boone. She nodded. That was all. But it was enough to keep the fire between them from dying. The townsfolk noticed. Earl Briggs puffed his chest one afternoon and hollered, Boone's lost his mind. First his woman, now takin' in a stray. Laughter followed, mean and sharp, but Silas didn't flinch. Just walked past, slower than usual, eyes low but burning. Word spread fast in Stillwater. They said the giant was sweet on a settler's widow. Said she must have bewitched him. Said a lot of things, none of them true. Doc Mabry, the oldest man in town besides the church bell, paid Lena a visit. You shouldn't be out here, he told her gently. My house is small but warm. She shook her head. Not talking charity. Just waitin' for the baby to come, then I'll go. You need more than waiting. She looked away. I got pride. The doctor sighed. Pride won't keep you alive, child. Not in this cold. Later that night, a knock came to Silas's cabin. Doc stood on the porch, hat in hand. She needs somewhere proper, he said. Ain't to skin you to take her in, just saying you're the only one who might offer without judgment. Silas didn't answer with words. Just saddled the mule and rode to the station, a blanket and lantern bundled behind him. Lena was sitting up now, eyes tired but alert. She looked at the lantern, then at him. What is this? She asked, voice wary. You don't got to come, he said. But you shouldn't stay. She looked down at her belly, then up at the snow. The wind screamed past the station like a warning. All right, she said softly. But I sleep by the fire. He nodded. Course. His cabin was plain but warm. The rocking chair still faced the hearth. An embroidered pillow sat untouched in the corner, stitched with roses by hands that now only existed in memory. Lena walked the space like it might break beneath her. She said nothing of the photos, the quiet, the dustless table. Just sank down by the fire and wrapped the blanket tighter around her shoulders. He made tea. Set it down near her without a word. She looked at the steam curling up and asked, You ever had children? He didn't answer for a long while. Tried once, he said finally. Didn't end the way we wanted. She didn't ask more. That night she cried. Not loud, just enough for him to hear. He didn't move. But his hand tightened around the old rocking chair arm until the wood creaked. The next few days passed quiet. She started to walk the yard with him, slow steps through snow. They didn't speak much. But he noticed how she paused by the bird feeder. How she touched the mule's ear like it was sacred. How she kept glancing at the toy horse he'd whittled and left near her blanket. The town kept watching, whispering. She's too young for him. He's just lonely. It'll end bad. Even Mrs. Hargrove had thoughts. But when she passed Lena in town and saw how the girl stood tall despite the cold and the stares, she said only, Winter's hard. But you got fire in you. Then came the morning when Lena gasped and gripped the table. The baby was coming. The snow was high and the doctor was stranded past Miller's Ridge. Silas threw open the chapel doors and rang the old bell till it echoed like thunder. People came, Mrs. Hargrove, the pastor's wife, 2 girls from the boarding house. Even Briggs's own wife. They crowded the cabin, took over with calm urgency. Silas stayed outside on his knees in the snow, head bowed. He didn't pray, he didn't know how anymore. But he stayed. Hours passed. A silence thick and waiting settled over the street. Then a cry. Not from Lena but higher. No. A baby's first breath. Silas stood, boots cracking the frost, and walked to the cabin as if his heart was dragging behind him. Inside, Lena lay pale but glowing, a bundle wrapped in her arms. She looked at him like he wasn't just a man but a promise. Would you, she said, her voice barely a whisper, hold him? His hand shook. But he took the child, small red-faced whole, and cradled him like he'd been waiting his whole life to do just that. The boy's fingers wrapped around his. Silas Boone, who hadn't wept since the day he lost everything, broke. And the whole town, standing silent outside, did too.